Welcome everybody. Welcome to How to Master Your Shadow Self. We're going to talk today about how your greatest shadows, your hidden shadows, can be turned into these magnificent gifts. They're going to be really profound for you. If you've never studied design, you don't really know much about it. This is going to bring you a shift. And now, if you have been studying design, you might not have thought of it in this way. So we're going to do our best to shift your mindset, your perspective, so that you are really impacted by this material, this information. So I'd like to see a show of hands using that hand-raising button right there. If you agonize over how to decide what to do sometimes, if you're really, yeah, there's a raised hand there. If you would like to learn how to understand yourself, would you like to learn how to understand particularly your shadows, which is the focus of this particular webinar, or if you're learning human design on your own, through online, through friends, through books, through forums, I'd like to see a show of hands. And are you experimenting with living your design? Are you new to design and you want to experiment with living your design? Can I see, let's see how many hands do we have up there? We have definitely some people interested. Okay, great. So if you've raised your hand, or if you're interested in human design, you're in the right place. This is where we're going to talk about one of the most profound pieces of information that you can find in this system is understanding your shadows. Why? Why are you the way that you are? So Cameron, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and share with them what makes human design different from all those other systems of self-knowledge that we have out there.
Well, design is one of the best ways to tell, as you were just hinting, like, how did I get this way? I've spent a number of years studying a bunch of different systems of personality analysis. I actually started a company teaching Myers-Briggs and did that for a number of years, and dove into the Enneagram and all these other systems. And human design is just in a class of its own. And one of the easiest ways to recognize how different it is in terms of how much detail it's capable of showing. With Myers-Briggs, you've got 16 different types, and that's basically as much detail as that system is capable of showing. They have lots of information on those 16 types, but that is as deep as it goes. And then Enneagram, depending on how you look at things, there's somewhere between 9 and 27 different configurations, so it can show, 27 different kinds of people. But as we know, humans are much more varied than that. We're much more unique. And in design, I actually calculated this. I think someone said they're an INFJ. Yeah, I'm an INTJ in that system. In design, I calculated the math one time, and it is capable of displaying so many unique charts that I don't know the name for the number. It's a 2 with about 50 zeros following it. So basically every single human that's ever lived, possibly every single human that ever will live, has a totally unique design chart. And the information is coming from a number of different sources. There are exoteric sources of information that are wrapped into design, quantum physics, biochemistry, and genetics. This is all actually based on your DNA in a very specific and measurable way. And then it's pulling in some more esoteric systems of knowledge, including elements of astrology, some elements of the chakra system and Kabbalah, and then a lot from the ancient Chinese I Ching, which is just enormously profound area of study on its own, but that's another topic.
Yes, and Nathan is asking a really good question. He says, isn't the chart fluctuating because of epigenetics? And what we see, Nathan, when we're looking at your design is we're looking at the imprint of that day, and all of us are going to have different influences, but the structure of your particular human design does not change. And that's why we have the strategy, which you probably are familiar with, and authority to help guide your decision-making process and all of the different places that you're learning wisdom potential. We just had a session with you today, so I know your chart well. You have a lot of openness and a lot of potential shadow aspects that you're going to be able to maybe get some insight into today, hopefully. Hopefully this will be helpful for you.
One of the ways that I actually look at design, your design, is it's a map of the parts of you that don't change. Everything else changes. You learn things, you forget things, you have experiences, you form relationships. You know, there's all kinds of things that fluctuate about who you, what you are, day to day, moment to moment, year to year. But this imprint that is shown in your human design chart shows you the parts of yourself that stay consistent among all that changing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you know, if you look at my design, these secret shadows of mine, I didn't know about them until I came to design, but being able to see them now, I know how they can be my greatest gift in the world, and that's what I want for each of you, to be able to take a look at your chart. So have your chart in front of you. If you don't have one yet, My Body Graph is a great place to get one, mybodygraph.com, but you're going to be able to reference that. Please do reference that as we go through this presentation. So both myself and Cameron are projectors. If you know your types, your aura types, we are the ones who are really focused in on understanding the other person. Who are you? But one of the ways that we do that is because we have this similarity in both of our designs. We have an undefined or open sacral center, this square right here at the bottom. We just don't know when enough is enough because we amplify, and sometimes our own personal decision-making strategy and authority can get overridden by this powerful energy that we're taking in. So this, for me, I know that this was one of my biggest shadows before design. I was terribly addicted to the world of the sacral. Overwork, you know, overdoing it way too much with everything. I don't know if that relates, if you can relate to that, Cameron.
Oh, no, not at all. I have no idea what that's like. Yeah, so sarcasm aside, yeah, I was basically worked constantly. I felt like I shouldn't stop, like I wasn't doing enough as it was, and so I was constantly trying to find ways to push myself harder, and that works really good if you want to cause burnout, but it doesn't work so good if you're trying to do anything else.
Yeah, and so what that brings for us, that experience of the amplification and going through the process of dismantling our shadows, understanding them, mastering them, is that we have the wisdom of knowing how to guide another's energy. That's our wisdom potential. How to have boundaries, how to get things done in an efficient and effective way, how to ask questions of the other to help them see their own truth. And so that's what we're here for. So in this presentation, we're going to go over each of these different pieces. They're called centers, these geometric shapes in the middle. We're going to go over each of them and show you how these undefined centers influence you, and then also how you can harness the potential, the wisdom potential in that center and quote-unquote master the shadows. Now, if you came to this earlier, you might have seen I put slay your shadows, and Cameron liked the term master your shadows, but really we kind of tricked you in that sense because you can't ever master or slay them. They're going to be with you for the rest of your life, but you don't have to make a decision from these influences. As long as you are aware of them, you recognize their power in your life, and you don't respond to making a decision from there. And therein lies the wisdom potential. Well, you'll be able to see things happening, your perspective shifts, and you have your strategy, decision-making strategy, and authority that will guide you rather than doing everything possible because of these, we call them, in human design traditionally, you'll hear it called not self, but we like to call it shadow self because I feel like you know, shadows aren't bad. They help define what is there. You know, the shadows are there only if there's light shining on it. So the shadows are awesome because they show us, they give us the ability to have insight into what's going on. If without the shadow, we wouldn't see, what the potential is there. And you'll see what I mean when we go over each of these individually.
So basically, all of the centers that you have in your chart that are not colored in, all the ones that are white or open, they represent a part of yourself that's receptive to the outside world. You're picking up information from the people around you. The centers that are colored in, this is where you're broadcasting something out. But these open areas where you're receptive, it's very, very, very common to interpret that part of yourself as a problem that you somehow need to fix. It's easy to see it as a shadow, when in reality it's not really a problem. It doesn't need to be. It's simply an area where you are receptive to the outside. Mm-hmm. So if you are in a place where you're interpreting this part of yourself as a problem, then it definitely will be a problem. It just doesn't need to be that way. It is very possible to have a positive relationship with this aspect of self and turn it into a secret gift, as we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what I love about this system, because it unlocks the keys, these potentials for you to be able to have these secret codes, if you will. And so we're going to go over what these are individually. With one of the largest influences in the undefined center world as far as how it influences you. This small little center right here, 63% of the population are walking around just not knowing about either their value or their worth, if it's completely open, as you see here in this picture, or if there's a little gate, a little colored in partial channel right here. Then you're going to have this influence of always wanting to prove yourself, always trying to prove or improve yourself. And that's the shadow influence.
Basically what's going on here is this area for you is sensitive to all kinds of different assessments of value. So it can be very easy to interpret that sensitivity, that sort of flux, as your value, your worth, isn't enough. Mm-hmm. And that's usually what happens for a person. They feel like they're not worthy, they're not good enough, and so they have to prove themselves to someone else. They have to improve who they are to be acceptable, to be good enough. Mm-hmm. So this leads to, overcompensating, overcommitting, making promises that you can't keep in order to try to prove that you're good enough, difficulty following through, and so on. The thing is, this is what we could call an infinite game. It's not possible to win that prove yourself, improve yourself game, because it's never going to be enough. You're trying to prove your own value, but your own value is infinite. You can't prove that. You can't demonstrate it. There's no amount of evidence that will ever be enough to satisfy that voice. So if you are living your life from this perceived shadow, you're going to be in a hamster wheel, and it's just never going to end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so we need to have you trust your decision-making strategy and authority before you make promises. That's what initiates you into deciding whether or not you need to do something that is about improving yourself, or maybe proving something to somebody else. You don't have anything to prove when you come into this life with an undefined ego center. You've got a free pass. It's people like Cameron who are here to prove themselves to us. Or really what I'm joking about is the fact that with an undefined ego center, the heart center, we're really wise. We learn to have wisdom about who actually can make and keep promises, and who knows their value, who knows their worth. We learn about that from the defined ego beings. And so that's where we have this turn into, if you've got this undefined in your body graph, this is where your greatest gift lies, is in being able to recognize value and worth in the other.
I'm curious, to the people listening, how many resonate with this? How many have found themselves in that place where they feel like they need to prove that they're valuable?
I can't raise my hand, but it's going up.
Yeah, yeah. And it looks like we have quite a few others. Yeah, this is a really, really common one. Um,
Hmm.
as the slide says, 63% of the population
Hmm.
um, have this experience.
Yeah. And now that I know about it, just being able to recognize when I'm feeling like for me personally, it was like I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. It's not good enough. I have to do better. I have to constantly prove and improve, and overachiever syndrome is from this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I read a story. I think it was Ted Turner.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, real famous media mogul, and heard the story that when he made his first $1 billion, and that's billion with a capital B, not M, he went outside and shook his fist at the sky and said, "Are you happy now?" to his dead father.
Oh God.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
and
something driving
yeah,
force.
and this is a big theme for him. I looked up his chart, and he has all four of those gates, but still the center's undefined.
Ah, that makes sense. Wow.
Yeah. So
Wow.
overachiever, yes.
Hmm. Hmm. Definitely. So next let's move into one of the other really big places where there's a lot of thinking about things that don't matter. 70% of the population have an undefined head center. So the question you want to ask yourself here is, am I trying to answer everybody else's questions? How that undefined center will influence you is that you're going to constantly try to run around and figure it all out for the other person because you're amplifying the mental pressure here. This pressure to find resolution to the doubts and the confusion and looking for inner truth. This is you trying to answer everyone else's questions. Now, if it's completely open, you just may not know what's inspiring or what's interesting. That's the thematic. If there's no little gates hanging off of them as potential activations.
Yeah, and this is pretty common as we can see. I certainly experienced this. You know, partially this can be fun. I enjoy, finding information about lots of different things and following my curiosity. But I do, or can at times, find myself thinking about things that don't matter, getting distracted by, this question. If I just answer this question, it'll all make sense, and that mental pressure will be gone. Of course, it doesn't work that way, but it's a very common trap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when it comes to inspiration, if you're losing focus and you're mentally scattered, one of the ways that you can help um, mitigate the pressures here is that you might make lists to help you remember what you need to focus on, what's important, so you don't get distracted or lost or confused or doubtful. And another thing here is that the wisdom potential is that you, if you have this undefined, you're somebody who's really here to recognize what's truly inspiring for humanity. What's a good seed for, as far as doubt is concerned, what's a good seed that pressurizes us to find answers? What is the confusion that can eventually come to realizations? What is the inner truth of whatever it is that you're contemplating? You're able to really recognize the wisdom potential in that inspiration center. So that's where it can turn into your greatest gift.
Yeah, Cameron in the audience said that
Mhm.
he doesn't have this problem, and
It's
does
a
have an
she.
undefined head. Oh, she? Oh, doesn't have this
Hmm.
problem. She doesn't have this problem.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh, but definitely makes a lot of lists.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does help. I have the undefined center, and lists do help me keep focused. So next we have the undefined solar plexus, and this one right here, avoiding confrontation of truth and truth. About 50% of the population have this undefined. So if you have this undefined, it's something that you might be like sensitive to. Emotions, highly sensitive to emotions, maybe empathic, where you're taking in the pain that's all around you. and you're taking in the pleasure as well. So what happens is that because you're so sensitive to taking in emotion, this is about emotion here, emotional intelligence, you are sometimes not able to stand up for yourself and confront when the truth is necessary. You might play nice and not want to rock the boat and you know, just smile and say things in a way that's not confrontational when in fact you're letting them walk all over you. So this is how an undefined center influences you in possibly a negative way.
Yeah, and this makes sense. I mean, if you're so sensitive to the emotions of everyone around you, then having the experience of people being angry at you or disapproving or just conflict in general, you're picking it up and amplifying it, and it can be extraordinarily difficult. So this makes sense, but again, avoiding confrontation and truth doesn't actually work very well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and you might be this touchy, nervous kind of person. If you have it completely undefined like this, you may just not know what to feel because you're getting bombarded with and overwhelmed by those emotions and just not know how to get a grasp on it. So what we recommend in order to master the solar plexus shadow is to be cool. Don't get caught up in the emotions of others. Distance yourself. Walk away from the energy if it's really toxic and poisonous. Doesn't mean just because this avoiding confrontation is truth doesn't mean that you have to, you know, always get in there and be in there because, oh no, if I avoid confrontation, then I'm in my not self. No, you still need to be healthy and protect yourself, always going back to your strategy and authority as far as how you're here to make decisions. But understand that if you're undefined here, if it's not colored in, these emotions that you're feeling, they're inconsistent, they're amplified because they're not generated from within you. And so understanding the wisdom potential here is that you know when it's time to confront. You can confront from a healthy place, from a place of understanding that these emotions that are flowing through you are not yours. They're not, don't attach to them or identify with them as yours. And you will find the wisdom potential of the solar plexus, the emotional intelligence that is yours.
I want to mention one thing I've noticed sometimes. A person can flip to the opposite side and like be very confrontational or super intense as an overcompensation strategy. I don't see it as much, but I have seen that as well.
Yeah, definitely. With all of these centers, there's a swing to the extremes, and this is also, you know, some people. Is anybody resonating with some of these undefined center aspects that we're saying, hey, you know, this is the shadow? Do you, if you're emotional, do you feel like you're, you know, sometimes you avoid confrontation and truth? It's possible that with any of these that you can experience as a defined center the potentials in the undefined center. You might resonate with them or identify, but just understand that when you're undefined here, this is 10 to 100 times more powerful in the other person's body because they're picking it up like a tuning fork and amplifying it like when you plug in a guitar into an amplifier and you turn it up way too loud and there's distortion. There's distortion in the undefined centers, and that's why it becomes this shadow that can control or even really ruin your life if you're allowing it to make your decisions for you. Can take you off on a lot of different unhealthy experiences for you. So the next place that we're going to look at is this is one of my favorites, the Undefined Ajna Center. So what we're looking at here is this is about conceptualization. So about half of the population are like me, having this trying to convince everybody that I am certain or pretending to be certain. So my shadow potential here is I might be listening to someone, and because I'm completely overwhelmed and not sure about what to think about what they're telling me, I might nod my head yes and pretend to agree because I don't want to be embarrassed and feel stupid. This is one of the biggest shadows that I had as well before I came into human design, just, you know, thinking that there was something I had this idea I was absolutely positive about, and it was right. I knew it was right, and yet I'm not designed to have fixed ideas or opinions or insights. I'm designed to take in the answers and the rationalizations and the realizations and think about things in all different ways. So this undefined center, if you have it undefined, what it will do for you is it will make you think that you need to prove that you're certain to the other so that you're not found out as being mentally inconsistent. But it's not a problem. It's not a problem to be open here because there's a lot of wisdom potential.
Yeah, this shadow, I think, ran my life till I was in my early 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, the way I would describe it is I can think through one, you know, issue 50 different ways and get 50 different answers depending on what route I follow to think about it. And so, like, there's no consistency possible. And I was terrified that people would find that out, that wasn't sure of anything. And so,
Mm-hmm.
of course, I overcompensated, went to great lengths to make myself seem certain and to not look dumb. And I think the overall result was kind of obnoxious. I think that's mostly what happened, is I got obnoxious.
I can identify with that. I remember being into the law of attraction and sitting around at a table talking with other people as we're working and just really being certain, no, it's this way. I know it's this way, you know, and it's definitely obnoxious when you're trying to be pretending to be certain about something. So
Yeah.
what I had to learn was to be okay and admit when I'm wrong or when I don't know. And it's nice to be able to let go of that identification of I got to prove that I'm smart, my design, when I'm trying to prove that I'm smart and intelligent, just being able to say, you know what, I don't know. It's the biggest relaxation for me, and be able to ask others for help when you've lost something or you're not quite sure where to go next with the conversation.
I read a book when I was in my 20s, and it was a science fiction book. It wasn't on this topic, but just one interaction in one scene. Um, one character was describing another as someone that basically, if they didn't know what was going on, they just said that I have no idea what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And it was described as something that this character admired about the other person, admired that courage. And this, for me, triggered a massive change. I realized that it's only when you're wrong, quote unquote, that you get to learn something. And I like learning things. So when
Mm-hmm.
I'm playing that game of trying to be certain all the time, feeling afraid of being wrong, then actually what happens is I miss all kinds of opportunities to take in something that actually might be valuable. So
Mm-hmm.
this, learning to be okay with being wrong or just not knowing something, and then maybe even going a step beyond that and enjoying it because you realize, oh, this is an opportunity where I actually can find out something that I didn't know before, really has a huge transformative effect. And then once that happens, once you're no longer playing that game of trying to prove how certain you are, what happens is you become very, very sensitive to how other people think.
Mm-hmm.
And you can notice flaws and, also really nice things about how different people reason their way through things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, there's something else that came to mind. I remember listening to Ross saying, you know, these types of people, undefined ajna, are suckers or just, you know, advocates of education, like really wanting to learn new things. And I found a lot of people who have this undefined really open, you know, open-minded, flexible, able to learn about lots of new things and think about things in all different kinds of ways. So the wisdom potential here is being able to recognize what is a good concept. What's
Hmm.
something that's really valuable that should be shared, or what's a good insight that's really unique and different? So this is the wisdom potential here and how it can turn your greatest shadow into one of your greatest gifts. So the next place that we're going is the undefined G center. This is your identity, direction, your higher self. And so if you've got this undefined, about 45% of the population does, you may be fixated on finding love and direction because that's the thematic of this particular center. So you want to ask yourself a question. Are you looking for love and direction?
This was a big one for me, another big
Mm-hmm.
one. uh, I pretty well. It's not constant, but periodically I'll just get this feeling like, oh my God, what direction am I supposed to be headed? Like, where am I in life? Where am I supposed to be going? You know, that kind of feeling. And it's like it can be terrifying. You know, it's kind of panic-inducing if
Hmm.
you believe that you know the kind of sense of urgency is actually true, and it's not, right? People that have this open aren't supposed to have a fixed sense of their direction in life. They're supposed
Hmm.
to have that shift and change as life goes by. Um, so just understanding that, you know, this feeling, this experience is probably going to keep happening. I'm going to experience it from time to time as I go through my life, but I don't necessarily need to do anything. You know,
Hmm.
I'm not supposed to feel like I know what my direction is. It's supposed to be a surprise.
Hmm. You're a collector of right places, as Ra would say. Somebody who is undefined in the G is sensitive to their environment and amplifying not just the people. So really being able to, like as a projector, as an advisor, somebody who has an undefined G center, you really are an excellent mirror for the other, knowing who that other person is. And if this is, look, guide others. If this is undefined in you, you're somebody who is a way shower, either the way of direction or the way of love, but either way, you're taking information in from the other and you're amplifying it. So the wisdom potential here is being able to help guide others in their direction. And it's important for you to understand that you are very sensitive to any kind of substance that affects your liver, and you are really, it's really important for you to be in and work in locations that feel good to you, because just like the undefined emotional system is sensitive to emotions, you're sensitive to place. So allowing yourself to be moved by your strategy and authority, putting you in the right place, will make so much more in your life go better if you're able to. And to find that right place, this is where you have the ability to master that shadow by being wise about direction, love, and how to guide others. So next we have the undefined splenic center. This is your survival intelligence. So 45% of the population, hi, that's me, holding on to things that aren't good for you, whether it's a person, it's a place, it's a job, it's a place to live. You know, ask yourself, am I holding on to things that aren't good for me? As an example, I recently moved into a house in Mount Shasta and had wanted to live in Mount Shasta for over 4 years. Finally found a place that was available, moved in, and it turned out to be one of those places that was a mold house. They had redone everything inside, so it was absolutely beautiful, but the guts of the house wasn't good, and I found out right away because we had this massive snowstorm, and then immediately after we had a bunch of rain, and the house flooded, and the mold immediately started growing on the walls. And I so didn't want to move because I loved Mount Shasta. I couldn't find a house to live in, but that's just an example. I stayed in that place a little too long, and I got really sick and uncomfortable. So, and it's just it's a fear. It's a survival fear that we're dealing with here. You know, not thinking that you're going to find some place that's better. So you hold on to something that's not good for you.
This is not one of my shadows, but I recognize it a lot.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, it makes sense. You just every now and then have this feeling that you're unsafe, like maybe you might die,
Hmm.
something along those lines, right?
When I was a child, I used to, because we had a lot of lean times, and I moved around from house to house, I actually stored, I stole food, and I stored it under my bed because I was afraid for my survival. I hoarded.
That's so funny. My childhood is a little bit similar in different ways, but yeah, I mean, I can understand that if uh, your sense of your own safety is not consistent, then
Hmm.
you're going to want things around you that at least seem like they're keeping you safe.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, one of the one of the things that I learned in my journey over the last couple of years, a friend of mine said, fear doesn't keep you safe. I thought that was really profound. It's an illusion that living in fear and responding to it is what keeps us safe, because it's not.
Hmm. Yeah.
So Yeah, this being able to let go of things that don't serve you anymore and adapt, and venturing into the new. The new and the unknown is no more risky than the known. It's just you don't know about it yet.
Yeah. And that's that, lack of flexibility, that fearful for survival, that afraid of the new. Being able to loosen up, to relax, to let go, and to trust in life, trust that, you're safe, even though you don't have a consistent sense of well-being maybe in the body, or that you can survive on your own. If you've got this undefined, that's the splenic center shadow. Being able to master it means that you have the wisdom potential of knowing what is healthy for you, what is, that's good to hold on to, what's good for you, being sensitive to your health, being able to walk into a room or have somebody walk into your energy and know whether that person feels good in their bodies, whether they're safe or secure or healthy. Wisdom, big, big, big wisdom potential here. So I find a lot of people who have this undefined are very sensitive to their own health, and this is the wisdom potential here, being sensitive to what's really healthy for me, knowing what is healthy. That's your growth. That's where you're learning in this lifetime, where you're here to go to school, if you will. So that's how you can master that splenic center shadow.
Some of the most powerful healers in various fields that I've ever encountered have undefined splenic center.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So the next center that we're going to take a look at, this undefined root center, as you see there down at the bottom, what happens is 40% of the population are always in a hurry to be free of the physical pressure. Where we had mental pressure up here, now down here this is physical pressure. So you want to ask yourself, if you've got this undefined, am I in a hurry to get things done just to be rid of the pressure, just to be free of this physical pressure? So rush, 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 do, 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 as fast as you can so that you can get rid of that pressure. The problem arises is that you get rid of the pressure and yet you just fill right back up again because you're amplifying the pressure of the world around you. So rushing through things that you enjoy, like maybe eating or a bath, it's not healthy for you to do that. So that is the shadow aspect of the undefined root system, which this is our drive and stamina.
Yeah, and the rushing doesn't get rid of the pressure,
Mm-mm.
only temporarily at best, and it results usually in much lower quality of whatever you're trying to do, and in some cases danger because you're driving like a maniac. Um, uh, Again, it's one of these illusions that if you hurry, that will help. It won't. It makes things worse.
Mm-hmm.
So the prescription here is lean back, basically. Calm down a bit and delegate if possible, and recognize that the feeling of pressure is going to be there. It just is. It's not going to go away, and it's very possible to not interpret it as a problem, to just have it be information on the people and events going on around you.
Mm-hmm. The wisdom potential here is that you know how to use this pressure. So being wise about stress and physical pressure, being able to learn to take advantage of the pressure when it's really important that you do so, like I'm talking life-threatening. Let's say, for example, you are at a car accident and there's a child underneath the tire and you're the mother. Maybe you have this tremendous adrenalized physical strength to lift that car off that child because there's a reason for it, and that's what that adrenalized pressure is for. There's a time-sensitive pressure that you're using this energy for. That's what it's there for. But it's not about doing it consistently in a manner that's always there all the time. It's about you being open to amplifying the need for something to get done fast. So your wisdom potential is, I know how to get things done super fast. You might does anybody identify with who has this undefined, being the one at work that other people go, oh, we need this done really fast. I know you can do this fast. Can you do this for me? if you want to just let me know if you resonate with that. But that is one of the potentials that you have, being able to really get things done in a quick way. But it's not what you're designed to do all the time. And what happens is, whether you have it defined or undefined, if you are overusing your root center, you're initiating without waiting to be recognized and invited or waiting to be asked, depending on what your strategy is. If you're overdoing it here, you get adrenal fatigue. So you get adrenal burnout if you're always running around in that constant stress mode. So taking a step back, relaxing, letting go of the things that are not necessary. So having the wisdom potential of what needs to get done quickly, that's how you override that shadow. Going back to always following your strategy and authority, starting new things from a place of stillness and joy rather than stress. So the next piece that we're going to go to is this undefined sacral center. Do you know when enough is enough? 35% of the population approximately don't have this innate mechanism that allows them to know when enough is enough, because they're amplifying that juicy life force sacral energy, that availability and respondability, and they become super slaves or super generators and overdoing it, staying up way later than their generator counterparts, overdoing it with all kinds of things: food, sex, work, play, anything that is going to be a part of what this world is all about.
Yeah, and I certainly was in this category. Still undoing a little bit of it, to be honest.
Yeah, me
But
too.
yeah, most of my life I was always, pretty much under any circumstances, the last person to go to bed in the entire house every single day, no matter where I was.
Yeah.
And yeah, just pushing myself, always working, always trying to find something to do, multitasking, trying to do two things at once, like just always trying to find a way to take on more than I'd already taken on. And yeah, leads to burnout, leads to a lot of just overall dissatisfaction in life, I would say.
This is where we have exhaustion and chronic fatigue syndrome. This is where we become overzealous by taking on too much and thinking we ought to do it all by ourselves. So the important factor here to understand, if you've got this undefined, is work smart, not longer. Delegate. Listen to your body's need for rest. Go to bed before you're tired. Rest. Nap. You know, take care of you first, not trying to take care of everybody else, because you just don't know when enough is enough. And the wisdom potential here, like I mentioned earlier, is that you're able to recognize the signs in other people. Let's say you're interacting with an other, you can ask them a question and you feel their sacral response within you. You can see the look on their face, hear the tones in their voices. You're able to be a guide for how to get things done and who that other person is, because you're open to amplifying that energy. And so that's why people with the non-sacral make great guides for the people who have this defined, the generators, who recognize or ask or have some kind of interaction with the other. These people have more awareness of what's going on in this center and what needs to be done and how to get those things done. We ask you generators yes/no questions to be able to guide you to your truth. And so next we have, not very many people have this undefined. As you can see, it has a lot of different gates. So 30% of the population are trying to attract attention. Ask yourself, am I always running around trying to attract attention?
Yeah, I definitely. This is not one that impacted me as much as the others, but definitely did. I would find myself in situations, and I'm a little bit shy and so on. And there were times when I felt like I should be trying to attract more attention. I should be trying to get myself in the middle of things because other people are doing that, and it seems to be working really well for them. So obviously, I need to be doing the same thing too. And of course, it doesn't work very well to do that. Attention finds me when it's the right time. And yeah.
Yeah,
Talk less, listen more.
it's it's a natural thing, and the key word, did you guys hear how Cameron said the word should?
Yeah.
Anytime you are telling yourself, I should, be really wary of that thought. You cannot trust the thoughts that are inside of your head about yourself, and everything that we've been talking about today as far as the undefined centers, we're giving you the hints, the keynotes of what your mind is thinking is important to you, and helping you understand that that's not where you base a decision. That's not how you make the decision to talk to somebody. Not trying to be the star or being afraid that you won't be noticed, so you have to blurt something out, but letting other people have the stage, waiting to be asked in order to communicate something. And so the wisdom potential here is really being able to make a big difference in the life of the other. When they invite your communication, you have this way of talking that, particularly when it's a one-on-one, but also in large groups, depending on your design, you're going to be able to say something in their language that really makes sense or makes a big difference. If you think about a lot of people with undefined throat centers that become orators or speech speakers and singers, there's a lot of flexibility in your undefined throat, and the wisdom potential is, how do I get my point across in a way that this person is really going to understand?
And that is how it feels for me at this
Mm-hmm.
point. When I talk to somebody, it's as though some part of me automatically translates into their language.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm not talking to somebody, then sometimes, I actually don't know how to phrase something. It's like I need that interaction with another
Mm-hmm.
person, and sensitive to their language structure.
Yeah, being able to have that hookup between you and the other. We're like puzzle pieces. Look at your design. When we fit into the other, there's this dynamic interaction at play. And then the person with the undefined center, no matter what center it is going to take in that energy, amplify it, and you might feel this pressure to speak. And yet still, if you hold back just a little bit and just wait for that energetic opening to speak, where the other person is asking for your advice, for your perspective, for your guidance. It's a lot more effective that way, because anytime you're being approached by someone else, when the other person is approaching you, you have more of their attention, right? So it just makes natural sense to wait to be initiated to speak or to feel for that energetic opening to talk. So I hope you guys have enjoyed us taking you briefly through all of the centers and their shadows and their potential wisdom. Now, if you've ever, has anybody, I actually thought this until a few days ago. Have you heard of that term, 21 days to make a new habit? Have you guys heard of that? 21 days? The 21-day, diet, or whatever it happens to be. But actually, the latest research is that it takes 66 days to form a new habit. So this is one of the things that I've brought into my current Rave ABCs class, and I wanted to share it here as well because I found it so helpful. When you get the download of this PDF, you're going to be able to click on this link, and it's going to take you to a website, a guy named James Clear. I really like his writing. But he took somebody else's habit formation theory, a practice, and he actually relabeled it. He called it reminder, routine, and reward. So the reminder for you now, this is the cue or trigger that starts this new habit for you that I want to impress upon you guys. You can do this. That the pieces that we gave you, the way the shadow influences you, if you remind yourself that this is the trigger. This is something that triggers me to be able to set in place a new routine. What is that routine? The action you take, the habit itself. You ask yourself those questions that we gave you earlier in whichever piece it is that you're contemplating, that center, right? So we have a new routine. Am I trying to attract attention, as an example? And if you're able to implement a new habit, waiting to be asked to speak, listen more, you have this reward. If you put a reward in place for yourself, the benefit that you gain from doing the habit, you're going to be able to reinforce this new pattern. All right? So one of the things I said is I don't want you guys to reward yourself with chocolate or food. That's not a good reward. But changing your state, like giving yourself a high five, putting your hands up in the air with victory, telling a friend who's going to applaud you for having this new habit, being able to have some kind of positive reinforcement is going to help you change from these shadows that have been really maybe possibly having a real big impact in your sense of self and well-being and your health and your decision making, and it's going to help you change that habit into something that's more positive, spiraling up in your awareness of your personal design or the design of others, however it is that you're designed to learn this stuff. And I want to invite you guys, because this is something that I love changing things and experimenting with things. This is one of the experiments that I'm doing with my ABCs class, and also I want to do with, or we want to do with this Living Your Design classes. How can we best support you going through this process with the tools of human design and allow you to really let it sink in? Even if you've taken Living Your Design before, there's an audit price if you'd like to join us for this one, because we're going to implement some new things, some tools, some experiences that will hopefully help you really ground this in your body and in your awareness. It's a powerful methodology. And this is just one of the ones we're going to share.
Yeah, there are techniques that work very powerfully to decondition some of this conditioning that we tend to pick up in the open centers. This is not something that is talked about a lot and not something that's commonly known, but through my personal journey in the last few years, I've been fortunate enough to be around a number of people that are in various ways undertaking their own personal journey of awakening. And from their work and the work of others, collected a tool set that so far is working really, really powerfully to turn these shadows into strengths in a very short amount of time.
Yeah, and I'm really excited about it. Cameron shared with some of these tools and techniques with me, and I can't wait. He shared a little bit of the beginning part of the process, and I recognized it as being very valuable, and that's the reason why together we're going to be delivering this Living Your Design with you, is because I want to be benefit from this experience that he's putting together. So just as an example, to show you what the power is of human design, it is about mastering your shadows, not having them, or accepting them really, not having them affect you. So before design, now that we've gone through all the centers, you can see in my design, I was a spontaneous risk taker. I didn't think that I could do anything right. Like, that was one of my mantras, nobody loves me, I can't do anything right before design. I know, totally. Crying, that little scared child, you know, not being able to do anything right because I'm a third line and I'm constantly making mistakes. Didn't know that that was my process of learning. I was really embarrassed about my mental process. I didn't think I was very smart. I was ashamed of my emotions, which is a strength of mine, trying desperately to prove myself, being a sacral addict, you know, always trying to answer everybody else's questions. And it was something that I got to this place of deep depression and suicide quite often in my life from the time I was a teenager. So that was before design. Before design, it was only a little bit over 4 years ago. And all I did was take up human design. I was invited into it. Somebody recognized me and said, you need to study this. And what happened is I learned to wait for recognition, recognition of who I was. Oftentimes people come to design, I do a lot of readings nowadays, and they usually hate themselves. Who they hate is, in part, these shadows, and they sometimes hate the one thing that really makes them unique. And I didn't like that about myself. But now, understanding to wait for recognition, waiting for the invitation, waiting for clarity before I make big decisions in life, 4 years later, big results. So for me is, I know that I'm here to discover what doesn't work. and to be able to universalize that to the other. I am proud of myself, proud of the work that I do, way more emotionally balanced. I don't go off kilter and on rages and throw emotional poison out to everybody, and the poor people that are service agents at the other side of the phone line don't get hammered by my rage. Life is way more fulfilling. It's way more fun, and I'm a lot more patient with myself. And I know all of these shadows, when they show up in my life, I can go, ha, there it is, and I don't get all depressed or upset about it anymore. So it's a really powerful methodology, just the design system in itself. But the thing is, it usually takes a lot of time. As you can see, it took me 4+ years to get to this point. So the experiment that we want to do with you guys is to see if we can accelerate it. Now, here's a picture of me that I just wanted to share. It's that you can link to it on Facebook if you want to read the whole post. But what happens is, before design, I hated the sound of my voice. I could not stand listening. You know how when you leave a message on the answering machine, if you remember the answering machines back in the day, where you left a message and then you heard yourself talk? It made me feel uncomfortable inside. I cringed. I didn't want to hear it. I got embarrassed. I just like, no, I don't want to do that. But so you see the date on this? It says November 21st, 2015. So it took me 3 years to get to this point. 3 years and a few months to get to this point where I really started to fall in love with myself. Before design, I couldn't look in the mirror and say, I love you, and give myself a complete, utter acceptance. And now it's like I've had some kind of shift, and I don't have these issues with who I am or how I sound or what I be in the world. I'm okay with who I am. So I really, really want this for each and every one of you. I want you to be as thrilled as I was with the discovery of loving myself. And it's a powerful transformation that hopefully you'll get to experience if you haven't already, because I know that a lot of you are in design, and it's something that I just hope, especially for the people that are special to me in my life. I'm going to have my sister join me with this particular Living Your Design. She actually asked me, so I'm really excited to have her in this particular experience. And I just want to invite you all to join. You know, in this particular in this presentation, sorry, that I loaded earlier, we're going to have Cameron share his before and after design as well. Do you want to do that, Cameron? Any sharing?
Oh, sure. I'll just say briefly, you know, it's pretty similar to what you said. I felt rejected and unwanted by almost everybody all the time. I was bitter, overworked, sick physically, tired literally all the time, except when I tried to go to sleep. Then I'd be wide awake. But every other part of the day, tired. And yeah, I was just spending my life doing things that I didn't like because I thought that I should, thought that I had to. And now, you know, I'm still in the process, of course, but I really love what I'm doing. I don't feel rejected. I don't feel bitter. I feel happy. I feel recognized. I've got all kinds of people in my life that appreciate and value what I have to share. It's a huge transformation. I haven't. It's not been quite 4 years for me. I would say maybe 3, but it's night and day.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. So after that, waiting, same thing with him, how he's here to make a decision. The results are, it's life-changing. It's going to be different for everybody, and everyone's going to have their own timetable. So I'm hoping that, would you guys find this information helpful in your life, being able to really dive into your personal design and how to live it? Because that's what we want to invite you to do with us. In this past hour, would you agree that this is time well spent understanding your shadows and how to master it? Please show me a raise of hands if this was helpful. Was this helpful to you? I really want to know if there's any fulfillment feedback that I want to hear feedback from you if you can recognize something that we can make better, because I'm a third line and I like to improve constantly. You know,
what worked and what could be even better. We'd love to hear your answers to either of those questions.
Yeah, and I'm going to send you a copy of this recording because you'll probably want this as a review, particularly if this is new in your life and you're not really familiar with it all yet. We can't cover everything that you need in this 1 hour webinar. Even if we had all day with you, we couldn't tell you everything that we've learned and discovered and want to impart to you to help you understand who you are and how you're here to make a decision. So if you would like, and you're available, you're ready to commit to yourself, we have a special offer for you today so that you can get everything that you need to know in order to master your shadows and to make the decisions that you trust. If you act soon in this next program that we're going to do, we're going to give you a very special offer. And what if those shadows were transformed from misery into wisdom? Can you paint a picture of what that might be like, Cameron?
Oh my. Well, the number one thing is your overall experience of life is dramatically improved.
Mm-hmm.
This happens as soon as you're not being directed by your shadow. When your shadow's in the driver's seat, then pretty much everything is, different flavors of miserable.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a huge change right there. But, we're intending to go beyond that to getting access to the wisdom that these areas where we're super perceptive, super sensitive to the outside world, where they actually give us information that's of incredible value for our own lives as well as other people.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. And so for you, if you mastered your shadows, if you didn't act from these not self strategies, what would that mean to you? How would it change your life? One of the things that we come to in human design is this concept of the personality, the design, and the driver. So just real briefly, we'll go into this more in the Living Your Design, but you see this little crazy lady in the back with the wild hair pointing over in that direction, and here's her vehicle, her driver is driving along, but this crazy lady back here, that's you, your mind. You're designed to be a passenger in this life movie. You see how she's kind of freaking out, her shoes off, and she's pointing, I want to go that way, I want to go that way. And what happens is, at the beginning of your experiment, when you discover who you are and how to make a decision, if you keep making decisions that tune you into your authentic self and help you be okay with who you are, what you're here to do. Look at the transformation. She's like, I'm still pointing, but her shoe's back on, her hair's not as frazzled. She's much more comfortable in that back seat. So this is the passenger, this is who you think you are, and the vehicle itself is your body. Now the vehicle, the body, actually starts to calm down because if you were to anthropomorphize or personalize your vehicle, if you've got somebody in you that's totally freaking out, wouldn't you kind of like freak out too, be uncomfortable with this crazy lady in the back screaming, I want to go that way? But over here, the body relaxes, the body starts to work even better. So if you're having issues with your health and your personal self-confidence, all kinds of things improve by doing this experiment. So you can see as we move forward, she's like, now she's actually looking in the direction that she's supposed to be going, that she's going, and she's like shrugging her shoulders like, this is all of this stuff, this is what's happening, and I realize I have no choice. I'm in this vehicle, this body, and my driver is driving me somewhere that I have no control over. And then we get to this place of true relaxation where she's listening to tunes, she's enjoying the movie, she's got a little glass of bubbly, and she's happy. You can see that she's happy. So it's a big transformation. This particular series of illustrations was created by a lovely generator woman. I absolutely adore her. One of the first people that took human design and actually implemented strategy and authority, because she was one of the first people that Ra gave a reading to in that way. Her name is Mary Ann Winiger. You can read her book on Amazon. It's called A Revolution of One. So our next 8-week group experience is forming right now. This is your Living Your Design Awakening program. It's the first of the official human design educational track that is approved by the International Human Design School. Both Cameron and myself are certified Living Your Design guides, and we're going to be team teaching this so that we hope to give you this diverse perspective to help reach as many people as possible that are attracted to going through this experience with us.
Yeah, and we're going to be including rapid, conscious deconditioning techniques. It's too much to go into right now, but this is something that I would consider cutting edge, never before shared in this way, and I don't believe anyone has worked with combining these methods with the precise understanding of human design, with this map that we can get of each of ourselves, where the shadows are, where the conditioning is, and so on. So I'm really excited to share this with you. Got a couple questions
Okay,
that
great. Yeah.
I think would be great to address. Megan asked about shadow versus conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, the way I would put it is this, and I'd love to hear your response as well, Andrea.
Mm-hmm.
In these open centers, it's like you've got blank tape that you can record on. And if a person, which is very, very common for all of us, interprets their shadow as or their open center as a problem of some kind, then what they do is develop compensating strategies. It's like, well, strategies to get attention might be an obvious one for the throat center, or maybe you've got certain habits and strategies designed to get you approval or to prove your value.
Mm-hmm.
And so these strategies get recorded into those open centers, and this is what we would call conditioning. And over a lifetime, you build up conditioning in these open centers, and it gets more and more and more, and your life force is essentially strangled. It's not able to flow through your system in the way it should, because it's diverted by all of these strategies trying to compensate for something that you actually don't need to compensate for in the first place. So strategies, the conditioning and the shadows go hand in hand. You could say that the shadow is like a collection of conditioning.
Yeah, your shadow is something that influences you to make a decision that comes from the conditioning, comes from your reaction to the conditioning forces in your life. And I think you explained it beautifully. Megan, does that help? Oh, she says thanks. So say great. So any other questions that you see that we need to address right now from the chat?
Yeah, sure. Nathan asked another really good question. What's one thing you can share about the technique? Is it within human design or something outside of it?
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic question. This is outside of human design. It is compatible, as far as I can tell, and we're working on combining these methods with design. And I think the combination is going to be extraordinarily powerful. That's how it has showed up in the tests that I've done so far. One thing about the technique that I can share, it involves a collection of tools. There are 2 foundational skills that will develop. One is the capacity to quiet your ajna center, quiet your mind down, and step aside from all that mind chatter. And we've got a method that can get, so far, anybody that I've worked this through, I can get them there to that state of no mind in about 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Then there is a process for directing your awareness consciously that is a bit too involved to go into right now, but this focusing of your awareness is what actually does the deconditioning. And then beyond that, there is what you could call future proofing or inoculation. Basically, what we want to do is immunize you against these games, so you don't get sucked into playing this game that you can never win, and so it just spins your wheels, wastes your energy, wastes your life, makes you unhappy. And the way to do that is very counterintuitive. Basically, you're in this game. Let's take the ego or heart center. You're trying to prove yourself, but you can't. You can't ever win that game. It's the hamster wheel. So the solution is to stop trying to win and instead lose. You give up on ever trying to prove yourself. Now, I know that this might not sound very good to some people. It certainly doesn't sound good to the not self, because the not self is like, oh, but I had these plans. I know I could do it. I know I could prove it. If I do this one more thing, I just want to do this one more thing, right? But that's the voice of the game. That's the voice that keeps you trapped in the wheel. So what we do is we take people through losing the game intentionally, giving up. And once you do that, it doesn't come back.
Awesome. Great examples and very clear explanation. I'm really excited about this. Thank you for explaining that. And I see that Greg has his hand raised. Greg, did you have a question that you wanted to share with us? Oh, no, his hand went away. So any other questions that we have in the chat before we wrap up for today? I'm really glad you were all here with us.
Nathan had another comment or two. Losing the game or surrendering. Surrendering is probably an accurate term, but I say losing because that's what it feels like to that part. And this is more definite. You want, if you're going to do this, you want definiteness about the idea, I'm no longer playing this game. I'm no longer running my life from this voice. So surrender sounds a bit more soft.
Yeah.
And obviously that has benefit depending on the circumstance. I use the word lose intentionally because it's harsher.
That makes sense. Thank you for asking that question, Nathan, because that it does feel a lot more permanent too. Surrender feels like, this nice surrender soft thing, and lose can give you some shattering effect in the not self mind or the shadow self mind, and that's what we want in this particular experience, is to shatter your sense of identity by looking at the pieces that are not consistent about you, the conditioning, the shadow aspects, and telling you this is not who you are, if that's a place that's ruling your life.
Yeah, shattering the false identity. You have to before this process, it feels like you're giving up something of great value. It feels like you're giving up a part of yourself. It feels like a part of you is dying. And then you go through and you actually do surrender. You actually do lose the game permanently and let it go. And what happens is magical. People have, it's like something pops inside them. And many have odd experiences, almost like they took some sort of psychedelic. And what you feel is a sense of peace and a rush of energy, because your energy that you had been expending in this infinite, unwinnable loop now returns.
That's amazing. And actually, it reminds me of halfway through my first Living Your Design experience, because I actually took this Living Your Design with 4 different teachers, both online and in person. The very first time I took it, though, it was a 2-month program, and halfway through, I just had this complete meltdown where I really didn't know what the heck was going on. I lost my mind. Like, I literally could not fathom what I was being told. It was too mind-boggling to be faced with all these things that I thought were true about myself, that I had to make these decisions because of these reasons, and to have that shatter, wow, it's profound.
Yeah. And would you trade it for anything?
Would I trade that experience for anything?
Yeah,
Oh God, no. I loved that experience because it told me that something was happening, something big, and I couldn't make sense of it at the time. Looking back through that, I mean, I stayed late because every time I talked, actually, during my first Living Your Design, I couldn't talk without having this tremble in my voice or almost crying. And this particular period was, I asked them, I said, I need to talk to somebody, and I stayed after, and they just held me through my discomfort and my shattering process. And it was so amazing to have that experience and to have somebody care about what I was, what I thought was a dying process. I really felt like, it was particularly centered around this. So I'm really, really excited about this, because when you took me through this the other day, Cameron, we did the process that comes before it, so I was prepared somewhat, and then taking me through this whole experience of what that could be like, I still could tell that there was another layer, another piece that could be, you know,
Oh yeah,
dismantled. Oh yeah.
when you get to that point of actually giving up the game,
Hmm.
um, it's an irony, but what shows up as kind of an enemy is hope. Because this
Mm.
part of you that's been running this game all along, it is kind of dying in a way. I mean, it doesn't really go away. It's still you, but it feels like a death very, very much. This is the Shiva, the destroyer, and Kali aspects of spirituality. You know, sometimes things need to die in order to be reborn. Um,
Absolutely.
but anyway, as you're going through the process, what happens usually is a person will let go to a certain degree and then kind of relax for a minute. And then that little voice kind of comes up with some hope, like, well, maybe if I do this, you know, and you have to kind of squash the hope because it's not real hope for something that you want in your life. It's this game trying to stay alive.
Hmm. Hmm. And Rebecca's asking, could I go back to work the next day? And yes, Rebecca, I was able to function. At the time, you know, I took my living your design experiment literally. When I came across design, I there was this place where I could quit, and I started studying everything possible. Now that's the experience of a projector. And what I did was, instead of working for somebody else, I started working for myself, and I was writing. So I was able to keep up with my writing assignments. I was an online freelance writer at the time, and I had a few uh, clients that I would do coaching with. But at the time, because I had taken my experience really seriously, my experiment really seriously, I quit my job, sold my car, and ended up having to live with somebody. So that's just my experience, where I was living in somebody else's house rather than having my own house, which was a big change for me at that age in my life. So I was okay the next day. But that process of shattering is definitely very profound. And my personal process, emotional, you know, feelings, really feeling this wave of hope to pain, and having that pain just be crushing and like shattering everything that I thought was true about myself. It just all accumulated in this one big whoosh, and I felt so much better the next day. I felt a lot better the next day. So we have a question here. Rose says, I have a question about the undefined sacral. Can undefined sacral feel sacral sounds in others? Does undefined sacral make sacral sounds too? Can undefined sacral feel sacral sounds? Oh, okay, so that's the same thing. But yes, you know, it's funny. I feel like when I'm around a generator, I say uh-huh a lot more often. Do you notice that, Cameron?
Hmm.
I do. I totally do. And I can feel, you know, whether they're in agreement or not. We did this in person when we did our living your design in person. I would love to do that someday in person. But we went off and we did little partner groups where the projectors paired up with the generators. But me as a projector, obviously, I paired up with the generator. But being able to ask the question and see the response on the face and feel it in the body, like feel this discomfort arise if what was on their face wasn't in agreement with what their body was feeling. You know, their face starts to get confused, and the gears starts to think, and they're spinning their wheels, and you're like, that response that you're telling me yes, which wasn't a sacral sound, is it really jiving with what you're feeling right now? You know, being able to perceive that, I feel like you can. Rose. So I would experiment with that with some of your generator friends and see how that works out for you. It's called Sacral Sessions, and in this program we give you a PDF of example questions and how to perform a sacral session to guide other people through finding their truth. So it's one of the benefits of taking this course with us. Taking this experience with us, it's open to all types: generator, manifester, reflector, and of course those like us who are projectors. And on this PDF as well, there's a link if you would like to click and join us for the next Living Your Design Awakening program. Right now we have a request for Sundays at 4 p.m. It all depends on who is signing up. So if you really want to be a part of the decision as far as when this works best for you, I suggest you let me know right away. Let us know right away. We've got Living Your Design, and we've got Rave ABCs. I've got a person who would like like to start Rave ABCs on Sundays at 10 o'clock. So if you've already taken Living Your Design, you can do that instead. But in order to participate in the rapid deconditioning program that Cameron is offering, you need to sign up for this particular group experience that's forming right now, because this is the one where he's going to unleash some of those tools to help you implement a new way of being in your life. And that is going to come complimentary for those of you who sign up for this next Living Your Design course.
Thanks for being here, everybody. Thanks for the great questions and participation, and really excited to share this with those of you that feel it resonates.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Cameron, for being here. I really enjoy this dynamic that we have, being able to explain things. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun to be able to share with my community, and thank you all again for being here. Bye for now.
Bye for now.